If you're a woman with belly fat, you will never lose it unless you do the following 5 things.
Ooh.
All right, first let's get into the causes of belly fat, because there's excessive body fat that you gain on your body that comes from, to put it simply, of course it's more complex than this, but to put it simply, you're not burning as many calories as you're taking in, or you're taking in more calories than you're burning. So your body stores body fat. But what happens to some women is they start to notice that their body fat distribution changes a bit, and they start to accumulate more body fat in their belly region, or more visceral belly fat, which they might not have had in the past. Like the classic way that women gain, store body fat tends to be in the hip and thighs area, whereas men tend to store it in the belly. But a lot of women will experience this, especially as they get older or during like a life change. Like all of a sudden, like I'm gaining weight, but I'm not gaining like I used to. It's right now around my belly. And I've had a lot of clients talk to me about this. And as a young trainer, I just said, oh, you just got to get leaner. I think it's, I used to think, well, I think it's in your imagination. You just store body fat. This, higher than normal amount of stress, or just my ability to manage stress may be different, right? Where let's say before you had some quiet time in your schedule, or you were able to do things for yourself, and now your schedule doesn't allow it. So now your normal life is not, you can't manage the stress like you used to.
Right.
So the normal stress now becomes more than you can manage. And then that causes that cortisol dysfunction.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm trying to think of a scenario where I've seen these independent of each other. Like most times they come, they almost come in pairs almost always. Like normally if I have a client that has hormone imbalances that we're trying to get to the bottom of, they normally also have some sort of excessive stress, chronic stress going on also. Rarely, I'm trying to think of an example where I've seen these independent of each other. Do you recall having a lot of clients like that where like you didn't have both in that scenario?
No, it's almost always the case, except for cases of like perimenopause or menopause, where you start to see hormone changes happen anyway.
Which is the inevitable, right? Like
yes.
There's an example. Okay, that's a good example. Yeah. I've had healthy clients, totally fine, good management of stress most of their life, and then they hit that age.
Yes.
And then that happens.
Yeah, and that happens these days. Sometimes women in their as young as in their mid 30s, usually 40s, where you start to see this, and then you'll hear them say like, "Oh, my body's just storing body fat differently." Now, there's a lot you could do, and we'll get to the solutions, by the way. There's a lot you could do that mitigates this quite a bit. But again, hormone changes, right? Cortisol, estrogen, progesterone, low testosterone. This is another one. Insulin resistance and low testosterone go hand in hand. And this is, by the way, I'm talking about women. So testosterone is commonly known as the male hormone, but it's just as important for women as it is for men. Now, there's a difference in how much testosterone is optimal for women and men. Obviously, women, it's much lower. But if a woman's testosterone is too low, she gets the same symptoms that a man with low testosterone gets. Low energy, low libido, higher rates of depression, brain fog, and loss of muscle, and increased rates of storage of body fat. And then insulin resistance tends to follow because of some of those downstream effects of the low testosterone.
Do you recall, so we just had a call last night with our GLP-1 group, and Dr. Lauren was in there talking, and she went through the list of almost every one of her female clients. Once they get to a certain age, she almost recommends almost all. There was thyroid, progesterone, Those are the 4, right?
Tend to be the ones that she works with the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next, another one of the causes of this is just loss of muscle. So here's an interesting statistic. After the age of 30, the average woman will lose 4 to 6 pounds of muscle per decade. So if she does nothing, if she does no strength training, if she's not trying to offset this, every 10 years, she's losing between 4 to 6 pounds of muscle. And this doesn't account for the loss of muscle quality. So although the scale may show you lost 5 pounds of muscle, the muscle that you kept isn't the same quality, because 1 pound of muscle is not equal to 1 pound of muscle. You see a pound of muscle on an athlete versus a pound of muscle on a sedentary individual. They are not the same metabolically. They're not the same when it comes to insulin sensitivity. They don't have the same fatty deposits. 1 pound of healthy muscle is not the same as 1 pound of unhealthy muscle. So aside from the muscle loss, you also see this degrading of the muscle health every single 10 years.
I can't help but think though that that statistic is exacerbated because of the previous two.
Oh yeah, it's all in fact
feeds into that.
I would say the loss of muscle plays a bigger role into those two, and then you see that you said, a positive feedback loop.
Yeah, because the one thing I've never liked about studies like that show that is the average person hears that and goes like, oh shit, this just getting older sucks, or just this is the inevitable that's going to happen to me as I age. I'm supposed to lose all this muscle. So I never like that because I feel like that sends the wrong message. It's really like, okay, what that is decades of not strength training, not hitting your protein intake, not mitigating your stress, getting good sleep, doing all the big rocks, right? Therefore, because of that, what statistics show is as you age, you're going to lose 4 to 6 pounds of that. So I just think it's so important to talk about how connected those all are. And it's not just because you're getting older, you're going to lose that kind of muscle. It's because of those things you're not doing causes the whole thing.
100%. We'll get more into this when we get into the solutions here, but losing muscle means you're losing insulin sensitivity because muscles are extremely insulin sensitive. Losing muscle means that your body is changing its hormone profile to pare muscle down, right? Building muscle, you need a youthful hormone profile.
Well, you're losing all your extra gas tanks, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, that's kind of the simpler way to look at it. Like, muscle is this great storage for all the excess carbohydrates that you consume. And so if you lose 4 or 5 pounds of muscle off your body, that was an additional X amount of calories your body could actually healthily store, that it would store and put to work and use. You now lose that. So what happens now that if you overconsume, now that gets stored as body fat. Where in the past, if you had that 5 pounds of muscle, it would shuttle over into the muscles and fill the muscle bellies up. That's a huge difference. Having those 5 pounds of muscle, that gets shuttled over there. You actually look better. You feel better. You can use that. You lose that. The same calorie intake. Don't change anything else. Now that same calorie intake ends up being over spillage and gets stored as body fat.
That's right. And muscle is also a stress absorbing tissue on the body. We know this with data. If you go into a stressful situation, a surgery, an injury, an illness, the more muscle you have, the higher the odds of definitely of survival.
Much more resilient.
But of coming, so much more resilient with more muscle. So loss of muscle is a big one. The next one is under eating and overtraining. So, and these go hand in hand. Unfortunately, the message that has been told to pretty much everybody, but especially to women, is that in order for you to be healthy, you need to eat less. So as your metabolism's slowing down, as you're losing muscle, you got to keep eating less, And then to be fit and healthy, you need to beat the crap out of yourself by over applying the stress of exercise. And so you get these underfed, overtrained, flabby individuals with hormone imbalances who don't understand why they're losing a little bit of weight, but really it's just their arms and legs that are getting skinny. They still have a belly fat. They don't feel good. They eat one weekend, they go out and eat and they gain all this weight. They can't figure out what the hell's going on, even though they're trying to do the right things because they're beating themselves up in the gym. It's because they're over applying intensity with exercise. It's not appropriate. They're not training themselves properly, typically overtraining, and they underfeed themselves, in particular protein.
Oh, yeah, this is the classic Karen. This is they eat 2 salads a day and a frappuccino is like all the calories they consume. And then they run through these like circuit-based types of class and try and burn all their calories off, and they just get stuck in this awful cycle of maybe they're not gaining any more body fat, but they're not losing any, and they're kind of staying the same place.
Just with all this hard work and no food.
Yeah, and so addicted to the adrenaline and endorphins and cortisol dump that they get from the class, thinking that they're doing something good for their body. Because man, after they get done beating themselves up for that hour, I feel so good and so accomplished afterwards, not realizing that they're addicted to that feeling because their body is starving of having a good, healthy balance of hormones. And so this is a vicious cycle that I tend to train a lot of clients like this that ran into this and then
you apply the right things to say everything changes like magic.
Oh, 100%.
Next up is the metabolic adaptation that happens from all the things that we listed. Metabolic adaptation literally means your metabolism is adapting. Now, in this case, your metabolism is slowing down. What you used to be able to eat, you no longer can. Now you eat it. Now you gain body fat. Now your body reacts. You can't figure out why you're eating so little and yet you're still, X amount of pounds overweight. You can't figure it out. And it's because your metabolism is slowed down to a snail's pace. And this is real. This is a real thing. We see this with clients all the time. Women that are coming in that are tracking their calories, consuming 1,000 to 1,200 calories a day, who still have 20 pounds to lose, who are doing cardio step classes 5 days a week, or Orange Theory or whatever 5 days a week, can't figure out what the hell's going on. Definitely don't want to eat less because I'm barely eating anything to begin with, and just feel like garbage.
There's just no room for them to go.
No,
they're so low calorie, and this is really where they might eat a cookie and they will feel the impact of that. You know, it's just like that excess amount, a couple hundred more calories, and it's going to change their physique at that point, because they're so, again, they're overtrained, they're low calorie, and this is just like something they've just gradually adapted to this really inefficient way to metabolize everything.
Meanwhile, all our peers, this is one of those things that we find ourselves arguing, debating over, when people use words like, oh, your metabolism is broken. And then you have the professionals come out, that's not what your metabolism broken. And then they make people think that, oh, okay, well then my metabolism is fine. When really what's going on is that your metabolism is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. You're starving it, you're pushing it like crazy, and you're telling it to survive off of what you're doing. And so it becomes efficient.
It learns how to do that.
Yeah. So, and it's unfortunate because, again, it turns into one of these things where all the science nerds want to try and argue over the terminology that's used to explain what's going on. But it's a true phenomenon that happens a lot. And a lot of coaches and trainers don't know what to do when the only tool that they use in their tool belt is the move more, burn more, eat less strategy. And this person has got themselves in this situation where that strategy no longer serves them. They are now at such a low calorie, to the example you gave, and I've seen this countless times, where they are tracking, they are weighing, they are measuring, they are eating 1,200 calories, and they are doing activity every single day, yet they can't lose that last 20 pounds.
No, what it tends to look like is they lost an initial whatever and then plateaued hard, and then they have nowhere else to go. They don't know where else to go. And now, just to maintain the weight loss that they did create, they have to maintain this crazy schedule of eating very little and moving like crazy. And your metabolism has adapted. By the way, there's a way to get your metabolism to adapt the other way, right? There are things you can do, and if you do them right, you can also speed up your metabolism in an effective way. Just like it slowed down, in which case you did that on accident. Well, we can on purpose speed it up. So here's the fix. Let's start with the first thing. Number one, lift weights. There is nothing you can do exercise-wise that is more effective at reducing belly fat in particular, visceral body fat in particular, like strength training. Now, why is that? Well, strength training directly builds muscle. Now, before I hear you, yelling at the screen or saying to yourself, well, I feel my muscles burn in my Orange Theory, and, I feel my legs burning when I'm going for runs. No. They don't build muscle. Those forms of exercise do not build muscle. You'll get a little bit of strength, but mostly what you're getting is endurance, which is fine if that's what you want. But they are not directly affecting your muscles in a build sense, in a gain muscle sense, in a speed up your metabolism sense. Only traditional strength training will do this. What does that look like? That looks like you do 10 reps of something with something heavy, good form, good technique, right?
Rest.
And then you rest. You rest for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Then you do another set. It is not going from exercise to exercise to exercise to exercise with no rest. It is not running on a treadmill nonstop or doing a class nonstop and sweating your butt off, whatever. It's not that. That does not send a signal to the body that says build muscle. Only traditional strength training will do that. And when you build that muscle, here's the beauty of this, right? Building muscle dramatically improves insulin sensitivity. It also tells your body to organize its hormones in a way to build muscle. So if you're trying to get your body to build muscle and you do so with good, appropriate strength training, the first thing your body does is it changes its hormone profile to do so. And it does this through a few different ways. One is it actually changes your hormone profile, but two, it changes receptor density. For example, strength training directly increases what is known as androgen receptor density. All right, what are androgen receptors? These are the receptors that testosterone attaches to. So if you had good testosterone as a woman, remember testosterone is important for women too. If you have good testosterone in your system, but there are no receptors to attach to, it does nothing. It just swims around your system, and it's like might as well not be there. The only way it can work is if it attaches to a receptor. Well, when you build muscle, you increase the number of these receptors. So even if your testosterone levels stay the same, for example, if your testosterone stayed the same, but you doubled your androgen receptor density, you've essentially doubled your testosterone. That's how effective it is. And building muscle does it. It also speeds up your metabolism. You gain muscle and you move in that direction, your body burns more calories. Muscle is active tissue that requires more calories to maintain than other tissues. So building muscle, we talked about metabolic adaptation. You can also get your metabolism to adapt in the other way by simply building muscle.
I think it's so important to talk, even further. You mentioned it, but further with the mindset that goes into how you lift. Because when I would get the same client that we're kind of describing, right, the avatar, and then you drop all the science knowledge that you just did, and you say, hey, we're gonna lift weights to build muscle, and they go, okay, you've sold me on that. I'm gonna start doing that. They still do it with the wrong mindset. They do it with the idea of still beating themselves up, still trying to accomplish more in the workout, still trying to get good at the workout to where it becomes easy, versus going into it with the idea of like, I need to get stronger. My goal is week over week, I want to be able to add more weight to the bar and lift more weight. And the truth is, it may never get easier for me. It's just, I'm going to be constantly challenging myself and challenging my body to lift more weight to get strong. That is going to send the loudest signal to your body to build muscle, not this doing weights. Okay, I'm ready. I can do it again. Doing weights again. Oh, okay, I'm ready. I can do it again. And this circuit-based type of training that I think so many of them are addicted to. So how you go into the lifting weights, I think is so important, because many times this client is attracted to the type of weight training that is not benefiting them.
No, and I'll take it a step further. If you look at the data, and by the way, we know this through anecdote, through training all the clients that we have over the last 2.5 decades, but you look at the data on weight loss, when the ways that the people lose weight is through cardio plus calorie deficit. In other words, people who drop their calories and they did cardio. A significant percentage of the weight that they lose is muscle. They will lose 10 pounds, but 4 pounds or 40% of it comes from muscle. Now, why does this happen? By the way, this doesn't happen with strength training. In those studies where they use strength training, it's almost all body fat, or sometimes it's all body fat and they gain a little bit of muscle. So in other words, you lose 10 pounds, it's 10 pounds of body fat, not 6 pounds of fat, 4 pounds of muscle. All right, why does cardio cause us to lose muscle in that scenario? Well, it's because cardio is asking your body to improve its endurance, not strength. Endurance doesn't require bigger, stronger muscles. It requires efficient muscles. Also, cardio on its own does burn a lot of calories, which your body adapts to, but it does burn a lot of calories. So your body learns how to do that activity better, more efficiently by burning less calories. How does it do that? It pares muscle down. The best example I can give you, a visual example of the difference between strength training and cardio, is a long distance runner versus a sprinter. Sprinters are essentially doing strength training when they run. They're sprinting for short distances. Right. They are muscular and lean versus low muscle marathon runners. So if you want to lose muscle, cardio is the way to go. If you want to keep your muscle, speed up your metabolism while getting leaner, improve insulin sensitivity, all of the above, then you will lift weights, and you will lift weights like somebody who's trying to get stronger and build muscle, not like somebody who's just trying to burn a lot of calories. Hey,
I feel like I have to reorder this, because with that, it's so important that you pair it with eating in a calorie surplus and definitely eating high protein, because this alone, if you're still trapped in that eating 2 salads and a coffee a day is you're because you're afraid you're going to put more body fat on, and which is totally understandable to this client. This client has been eating 1,000 calories, doing all this high activity, and you say, I'm going to cut this activity out from you, and now I want you to slow down your workouts and strength train and take rest periods. And then you try and tell that client, oh, and by the way, I'm also going to have you increase calories and bump your protein intake. Now, you scare the shit out of that person. But it's absolutely necessary, because what happens when we go to the gym and we lift properly the way we're supposed to, we send the loud signal for us, hey, to go tell the body to go build muscle. But if you don't give it what it needs to actually go do that, then all you're doing is sending a loud signal, and the body isn't adapting, it isn't growing, it isn't building muscle. And so it's imperative that not only do we train a certain way, but then we also feed the body appropriately in order to reap the real benefits of building muscle.
It's like sending a bunch of blueprints to construction workers to build a house.
With no tools.
No tools, no wood, no sheetrock, no nothing. Eat 1 gram of protein per pound of target body weight. Okay, so whatever the weight is that you want to weigh, it's 120 pounds, 150 pounds, whatever. That's how many grams of protein you need to eat on an, ready for this, every single day basis. Not sometimes, but every single day.
And not an average too. So somebody brought that up recently and I was like, you know what? We haven't talked a lot about that on the show and we should talk about that more often, because when you talk about calorie average is okay, right? It's about how undulating your calories and the average when it comes to weight loss or weight gain is so important, but you can't do that with protein.
No, protein needs to be consistent because we don't really have an effective way of storing protein like we do fat or carbohydrates, right? Carbohydrates get stored as glycogen. Fat obviously can get stored in body fat, but protein needs to be consistent. In other words, you can't have a super high protein day and then a bunch of low protein days and average it out and say it's all the same. It doesn't really work that way. You want to have it on a consistent basis. If your target body weight is 150 pounds and you're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, guess what? You're eating 50 grams of protein for breakfast, 50 grams of protein for lunch, 50 grams of protein for dinner. Now, a lot of people don't know what that looks like. A lot of people listening to this right now is like, okay, I'll eat a high protein breakfast.
I'll have 9-10 ounces of meat.
Yeah, I'll have 2 scrambled eggs. No. 50 grams of protein of eggs is, what is that, 8 eggs, something like that? It's like around 8 eggs. So it's a decent size. So you need to have like 8 ounces of meat or 8 ounces of some kind of protein for breakfast. You need to do the same thing with lunch, same thing with dinner. Eat it first, prioritize it. That's going to give you most of the nutrients that you need. Now, of course, you can't just eat protein. You need to have some fats and some carbohydrates. But I'm not worried so much about that because when people tend to prioritize the protein, especially if they get it from whole food sources, the other stuff tends to come. Yeah. So do that. And if you don't, you can lift all the weights in the world. You could train perfectly with strength training. If your protein's low, you're going to build very little muscle. If it's too low, you'll build no muscle. It doesn't even matter at all. All right, next up is to have some kind of a spiritual practice for stress. Now, this could be meditation. It could be obviously prayer. But when you look at the data, now here's why we put this in there for stress management. When you look at the data on managing stress, there are 2 very powerful ways that you can manage stress. One is to change your lifestyle. Okay, so you got a stressful job, you got a mortgage, you got 3 kids, you've got a spouse or whatever. You could change all that in hopes that it'll completely change your stress. Although you might switch jobs, find a job that's just as stressful. You probably don't want to get rid of your kids. I think if you did, you'd probably be more stressed out than you were before. So sometimes, the reason why I'm saying this is sometimes our lives we can change to make less stressful, but oftentimes it's just life. Like it's just this a season of life. It's stressful. So the data shows us very clearly. Either you change your lifestyle, but if that's not really something that is possible for you in a big way, incorporating some kind of a spiritual practice, especially starting the day out with it, has significant impact on how your body manages the normal stress of your life. I mean, there's studies that show that people who wake up in the morning and engage in 10 to 15 minutes of prayer or meditation, that's it. The amount, the type of stress that they, or at least the way that they perceive the stress throughout the day, their normal stress, is reduced significantly. So for most people, in my experience training people, when I did this with clients, it was easier for them to do this than it was for them to do this overhaul of their life. Now, sometimes it was something they could do, like you're dating somebody that's toxic. Let's break up with them, and then boom, stress is gone. But other times it's like, look, I got kids, I got a job, like I can't change it. These are important things for me. Incorporating some kind of a spiritual practice tends to give us a sense of purpose, takes us out of those stressful things, and starting the day out that way, the theory is that it primes the central nervous system to receive the stress differently throughout the rest of the day. That's why it's so important to do this first thing in the morning if you're going to incorporate this. And the data shows as little as 5 to 10 to 15 minutes.
Why should it be any different than the body? We do it for workouts. This is for our mind and our mental ability. And I think too, like really acknowledging the fact that there's like, we're like control animals. Like we just want to figure out how to predict things in our environment, how to manage all these things. But there are factors, there's a lot going on here that we have no control over. And to acknowledge that right away and to just stay with what you can control, it relieves this excess amount of stress and things that can accumulate really fast that really are unnecessary for you to carry around with you, that adds to this dysfunctional stress that you're going to carry.
I find this conversation really interesting because this has been in societies and a part of many cultures for a very, very long time.
Thousands of years.
Yeah, thousands of years. But it does feel like it is more important today than it's ever been. And I think it's just because
people need to be reminded.
You know, we've created so many things in just the last few decades that causes this, like, us distracting and taking us from being present. Mm-hmm. Like, so much of life just 100 years ago forced you to be present. I mean, just your daily activities, feeding yourself, like the things that you would have to do to get through your day required so many moments of being present in yourself, in your body right there at that time. And today it's so different. I mean, we can't even go to the bathroom or wait in a line or have downtime between something at work without this appendage that we grab right to and distract ourselves with, that's so addicting. And it's like, and I don't think that we understand fully what that's doing to our bodies. And so these practices, whether you believe in a higher power or not, I think it's going to have to be adopted by everybody. So you can deny the higher power part and the maybe the spiritual side, but the practice of, not being distracted, being hyper present. And what that does is it takes away, like, when we stress out, that's because we're either dwelling on the past or the future. And being present eliminates that. Mm-hmm. If I'm 100% in this moment, I'm not worried about all the shit that's going to happen in the future. I'm not stressed out about what happened yesterday or last year. I'm in the moment. And so that practice of getting you to do that, whether you do that from a spiritual standpoint or you have some sort of way of doing that, it's going to become necessary for everybody.
It's always been necessary. But what's happened is we've created all these time-saving devices and tools, and what's ended up happening is we've actually given ourselves less and less time, made ourselves more and more busy. By the way, this isn't this isn't our opinion. The data shows anxiety, not forget depression, but anxiety, which is, stress causes anxiety, right? Could also cause depression. But anxiety is at peak levels. Like, what is going on? We have more stuff than ever. We have more entertainment than ever. And a lot of experts believe it's loss of this, we're not taking this 10,000 foot view of things anymore. Whereas this was a regular practice. This was a part of society. It's no longer part of society. And again, the data on this is clear. It's like, you could try changing the things in your life to dramatically reduce your stress. But if a lot of your stress is from stuff that you can't change because it's life and life is hard, then changing your outlook and changing yourself will do that. And the spiritual practice will do this. It doesn't take much. Again, the data that I've seen shows 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. That's it, in the morning. Most of us have that in the morning. And what we tend to do with that in the morning is scroll through social media. 10 minutes social media in the morning. By the way, that does the opposite. That primes the central nervous system for alarm, because social media is all alarm. It's all about what the other person's doing. It's all about crazy news, political news, scary stuff. Now you've primed your central nervous system for worry and anxiety and stress, versus priming your central nervous system for purpose and meaning and larger thought. And then that sets you up for the rest of the day. And then something stressful happens and it's not as stressful. Now your perception is totally changed. All right. Next up is to get good sleep. So we talked about the morning. Let's talk about the night. Sleep is the most recuperative, rejuvenating thing you can do for your body. Good sleep has a profound effect on balancing hormones. Bad sleep or inadequate sleep has also an equally profound negative effect on your hormones. I mean, you could lower your testosterone dramatically with 2 nights of bad sleep, or you could throw your estrogen and progesterone way off with 1 or 2 nights of poor sleep. So what is good sleep? It's about 7 to 8 hours of good, solid sleep every single night. Not 6 hours or 6.5 hours. It's 7 to 8 of good quality sleep. And in the way that this happens, the way that you can get this, and now we could give you the steps and what to do, and we'll talk about that, but really it boils down to prioritizing it. I'm going to prioritize good sleep, meaning I'm going to make sure I'm in bed by this time, which gives me 8.5 hours before I need to wake up, because it's going to take you about 20, 30 minutes to fall asleep. So I'm going to go to bed at this time, and I'm going to wake up at this time. I'm going to keep the go to bed and wake up times the same every single day, so I don't jet lag myself Monday morning because I slept in Saturday, and Sunday because I went to bed so late. And then I'm going to set myself up. What does that mean? An hour before, I'm getting ready for bed. What does that look like? I'm calming things down. I'm dimming the lights or turning them down or going by candlelight. I'm not watching things that are alarming. I'm not reading the news. I'm calming myself down, maybe reading a book. getting myself into that state where now I'm ready to go to bed, versus what we tend to do, which is go, 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 and then time for bed, hit the pillow, expect to have quality sleep. Doesn't work that way.
You know, my favorite part about helping clients with this hack of like focusing on sleep is that when you look at like trying to be a healthier version of yourself, we look at exercise, we look at diet, we look at sleep, hydration, all these things. And, you know, sometimes days get away from us where you get so busy and you didn't eat the perfect meal, or you missed a meal or whatever, or you didn't get a chance to make it to the gym. And so what I love about teaching clients the importance of prioritizing sleep is that it's the thing at the end of the night that it's like, hey, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, and this, but I can at least do this. And that is such a big rock in the grand scheme of things when you're trying to get a healthier version of yourself, especially when we're talking about hormone profiles and belly fat and trying to solve that. It's like, hey, you know what? Tomorrow we'll get up, we'll try and hit the diet better. Tomorrow we'll try and be better about the gym, but you still have tonight. You still have got that. So it's like, and to me, it's like, if you're a client of mine and you missed out on those first two things, you still have this opportunity to go, hey, you know what? Like, I'm still going to make today like somewhat of a success by practicing some of these other things. And this, I think they feed into each other. When you talk about a spiritual practice, doing something like that before you go to bed, since you're prioritizing, it's like, hey, I didn't do those other things, but you know what I'm going to do is I had such an overwhelming day. I'm going to make sure 2-3 hours before I shut everything down. I'm actually going to either do prayer, meditation, yoga, whatever it is, to be hyper present in the moment. And then I'm going to make sure that I go to bed and get a good night's rest that set me up for success on the next day. I just think if people went into their day with that attitude of knowing that they can still win the day by setting their night up and having a good night's rest to set up the tone for the next day, I think maybe they wouldn't beat themselves up so much about maybe the one bad meal they had or missing the workout for the day, because that's such a big piece, is to get good sleep. And if you screwed up on the other things, it's just going to get compounded by also just riding off the sleep too. Yeah, you can still save that.
There was a study that showed that, I've quoted this one many times, that they had two groups of people, both going to calorie deficit, so both eat low calories, both lost the same amount of weight, but one group, they had them have terrible sleep, so they limited them to, I think, 5.5 hours, 6 hours of sleep. The other group, they prioritized good sleep. They both lost the same amount of weight, but one group lost twice as much muscle and half as much body fat. So they both lost, I don't remember how many pounds it was, but the group with the bad sleep lost twice as much muscle and half as much body fat. And that was the only difference, was the bad sleep. All right, lastly, get your hormones checked. Now, you don't want to get your hormones checked by your general practitioner.
No.
Because they tend to base it off of certain ranges. They don't look at symptoms. You want to go to somebody who works with hormone replacement therapy. This can be a godsend if indeed this is something that you need and that works for you. I now, after having spoken to many experts in this arena, many of them say, "Oh, hormone replacement therapy is a godsend." If somebody's exercising and they're trying to eat right and they're leading a healthy lifestyle, and they're 43 years old, and we do these tests and we see thyroid is low, your testosterone's a bit low, and we start to supplement with bioidentical hormones, profound difference in the way that people feel, profound improvement in quality of life. And hormone replacement therapy in the context of a healthy person, it improves longevity. Now, in the context of somebody who's very unhealthy and inflamed, then you don't waste your time. But if you're doing all the stuff that we're talking about and you get your hormones checked, and you're going to, let's say a functional medicine practitioner or somebody in a longevity clinic, and they're like, yeah, we could give you some progesterone, a little bit of estrogen, some testosterone, thyroid, really balance things out, you will notice a profound difference in your results in terms of fat loss, muscle gain, libido, energy, sleep, all of the above. So that would be the last thing that I would say.
I mean, I don't even know if it's a last thing for me. I think almost towards the back half of my career, anytime I was training anybody over the age of 40, if they haven't had it checked, I almost always, especially if they were struggling. Panel, at least. Yeah, especially if they were struggling, right? Like they're like, Adam, I eat good, I train, I do these things, and they're like, still frustrated, I'm seeing a result. When did you get your blood work done? When have you had somebody besides the general practitioner look at your blood panels and go over that with you? If you hadn't, I would almost always send my clients first to that. So at least give us some insight, because what's tough as a trainer is if their hormones are really out of whack and really imbalanced, and I'm pulling all these levers with diet and sleep and exercise, man, so a lot of times you'll see minimal like results from all that great effort because the hormone profiles are simply just getting that healthy in an optimal place. All of a sudden, all of that effort and it starts to really pay itself off. So almost always do I recommend somebody that has struggled with weight loss and feels like they have ate or eating well, they've trained, they've done the things, and they're not seeing the results. Go see a specialist.
And all these things directly impact your body's ability to burn body fat, but in particular, the distribution of where you store body fat, like we said earlier, with belly fat versus the other areas.